In the spring and summer of 2022, National Urban League and Unidos US, along with partners, conducted over 60 interviews and focus groups with 260 people across various stakeholder groups. This animation contains actual quotes from individuals who participated in focus groups and interviews. For the last 20 years, academic achievement gaps and learning opportunities have remained stagnant for Black and Brown students. While there are many contributing factors, we'd like to share two key findings from K-12 and college admissions about the validity and reliability of standardized tests, with commentary from those most impacted, including students, educators, and education advocates.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? We're here to talk about the future of education focusing on standardized testing, share important research findings, and hear your thoughts as the people whose experience is shaped by this topic. I want to lead with this question. If the K-12 system were to move away from standardized testing, in your view, what would be gained, what would be lost?
I think what would be gained is it would allow us to see the student as an individual, not just a test score, which personally I really love. However, what would be lost is that consistency and easy way to complete admissions. But also, how do we prepare academic units to be able to teach these students and move them successfully through the pipeline?
That's a really great question, and something for us all to think about.
I think those of us, the states that have mature assessment systems, my primary worry is losing it. I don't want to lose that scale. I don't want to lose all of that knowledge that's built into the system now.
Knowledge and scale would be big things to lose. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Bobby Kennedy said back in 1965 that we needed to have an annual assessment as part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And he said that we need to have an annual assessment because if we don't, these racist superintendents are going to keep on doing what they do, which is deny Black children education. The assessment does provide a level of transparency. I think there's a scenario in which it gets utilized to do good things.
I think the norm reference scale center white dominant culture by design. We haven't talked about that too much. I really wanted the field to push away from comparing Jill and Johnny and push more towards comparing learning to proficiency level descriptors. Like if you're level 1, look at level 2.
These are all important points. Thank you. So, there is evidence to support claims that standardized test scores are impacted by students' life experiences and their knowledge of test-taking techniques.
I'm reminded of when we're giving statewide standardized tests when you talk about equity, and test validity and reliability. But we would have questions that would reference certain things, like going to the lake, or going to a park, or having a particular experience. What our teachers would report back to us was, our students have never done that, or haven't been exposed to that. It was very difficult for them to read that story, or to respond to that particular question.
Some of our brightest students are really bright and can get everyday application of education. But when you sit down for 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, sometimes they're taking multiple sections of the test throughout an 8-hour day. What we tell them is that your intellect boils down to whether you're a good test taker, right?
That brings us to our second research finding. Students' anxiety impacts their test scores, and students often report test anxiety before their exams. There's a racial and gender component to this as well. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
It's not really the only means to grade someone because someone with stage fright, that might be really hard for the person in a test situation. The person may have the knowledge or really understand what was taught, but just because of that frightened tension, it might be difficult.
Right on. What you think matters, and you matter. What you just shared will help us better shape your future.
I feel like the standardized testing has its place, but I feel like there's too much placed on that alone. It needs to be a culmination of multiple things, not just one test. And then on top of that, there needs to be, I feel like the people who are on the team to put forth the test again, all those who put it together and need to have some kind of background, feel like sometimes it comes from one side at one place. And you can tell because the answers are so rigid. And that's not how life really works, right? None of us live in a rigid world where everything is the same. So, I just think that the experience as a whole needs to be more real world.
Wow, this has been a riveting discussion. As we reimagine how the future of standardized testing looks, I know it will be shaped by your voices and the data that emerges as we continue to look closer at this very important topic. So thank you all for being here. The conversation continues.
Paving the road toward an equitable education for all is happening now as civil rights leaders, educators, families, students, and policymakers call for change by realizing that the change should happen with us, not to us.